Today on For What It's Nerd, we are discussing Supergirl, but before we get into that, you guys are probably wondering where I've been, and also why everything looks different behind me. For those who didn't know, I have been in the process of moving. We're still in the process, as you can see. Not so much the moving part, but getting everything sort of situated, getting everything feeling together. And so because of that, we're a little bit upside down at the moment. So this is why you're getting one that's sort of half done, half baked, a room that's half baked. And also you're getting a rushed kind of thought today regarding Supergirl, because really I didn't know if I was going to end up getting to watch it this weekend. I did force myself, largely because I didn't want to miss out. And people are talking about it, people are discussing it, and I want to be part of that discussion. As you guys know, that's the whole point of For What It's Nerd. But it's been such a weird move. The move kind of has been sort of in limbo for about a week, and then we had the kind of go, but we couldn't start on the morning, so it was like afternoon, so it was a mad rush. I still had to go to work on top of all this, so it's been a really weird week. On top of that, of course, there's also been this heat wave hitting the UK that has made it like, basically I didn't want to go and watch Supergirl earlier in the week, so I've watched it today, the Sunday that this releases, the 28th of the 6th, because I just could not be bothered to even think, breathe, exist, never mind go and watch a movie. So that was sort of the reasoning. So today it's a lot cooler. We've managed to do this, of course, because the room's not set up properly as well. Light can be an issue at the moment. I'm not in full control of the light, so you might see a blaring ray of light any minute now hit me square on in the face, and I'm sure that'll be great for us all. But really, what I want to do is sit here and kind of discuss Supergirl a bit and see where we kind of get to. I don't think it's going to be a super long one, just because there's things to do, there's things to get on with. So yeah, with that said, Supergirl. Now, as I always say with DC, I am not a huge follower of the comics as much as I'd like to be. That is going to change eventually. I'm sure of it. It's just time, And so, did I get to read the Woman of Tomorrow comic ahead of this? No, I did not. And the thing is, as well, this is different to the other DC U projects so far, in that it is the first one sort of more solidly based off a specific comic. And I'm hearing a lot of things regards how that adaptation works from the comic to the movie. I can't talk about that, of course. So if you want to see someone talk about that adaptation and whether that's a good adaptation from the comic, I am not the review for you. This is a review about the movie in and of itself. And I think that could be good as well. So first off, what I want to say is I do not think this is as bad a movie as everyone is making out to be. So I think it's a movie that will stay with me. In some ways, actually, yes, there's a few scenes that I would agree that is the truth. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit, I hope, unless I forget it, because, I do that a lot. But is it a movie that I would necessarily go and watch again or be adamant other people have to watch? No. And that's where I sort of sit with this one. It's one of those ones that, like, if someone said, "Oh, I didn't like Supergirl," I'm not going to go and fight them over it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's other movies that where people have said, "Oh, I really didn't like that," or I'm like, "What?" Like, I can understand why someone might not enjoy this movie. And there's certain parts that I didn't enjoy. So let's just kind of rhyme off the things that like were good and bad first, and I'll try and kind of explain some things that I think a little bit more. I think. Did I like Millie Alcock as Supergirl? Yes. Did I enjoy Ruthie as a character? I think there's some stilted points, but it's a child actor, and children can struggle with certain scenes and stuff like that. Now, we've seen great child actors before, but I don't think she was bad at all. I don't think she was bad at all. Just some stilted dialogue in places. But I think that kind of added to the character because she's trying to put on this performance in a way. So there's a little bit of like could you argue that she's sort of, the character is stilting rather than the actor? A little bit. Lobo, pointless being in the movie. It felt more like they wanted to get Jason Momoa in the role as Lobo, and they thought the best way to do it was in this movie, because otherwise you'll be waiting forever. Because the other movies that they're going to be kind of, or shows or whatever they're going to be kind of doing are set a lot more on Earth. Did I hate the casting? No, I didn't hate the casting at all. I in fact, I think he was. It was. You could tell he was having fun, and I think that matters to a degree. But just every time he showed up, I was just thinking, so why is he here? So why is he here? You know, it felt very contrived. It felt like an extended cameo in not a good way. It felt like, and how do I describe this? It felt like, do you know how people complain about a character having to, an MCU character having to show up in a Spider-Man movie? It felt like that, but actually, they're not relevant to the plot. Even it felt like that. I liked that when in the Spider-Man movies, and you know, we're going to discuss that in a few weeks' time. But I like that because I feel like that makes it more comic booky. I don't think it felt comic booky here. It almost felt like a promo ad. It felt like a backdoor pilot. It felt like if people are going to like Lobo, they're going to make something about him. But like it's like that backdoor pilot of a show when you're thinking, why are they giving screen time to this whole other family? Anyway. Krem as a villain. Was I interested? No, not particularly. People have said it's sort of like a tier 1 sort of starting phase MCU villain, and I can see that. But I think the reason Krem as a villain is not significant, so to speak. In fact, I would almost liken him to like Ronan in the Guardians film, which ironic. And Ronan's cool, just to clarify. I'm not saying Ronan's cool, but there's a bigger bad in both those scenarios. And obviously this one, it's more of the bad is emotions. I know that sounds so cheesy, but it is. The bad in this movie, the big bad, Krem is a vessel for Kara and Ruthie to explore their emotions regarding what has happened to them. And yes, Krem is what happened to Ruthie, but the bad is revenge. It's what takes over inside. It's how you feel. It's how you act in scenarios. That's what this movie is about. And so Krem is there to facilitate those emotions, essentially. Krem is the surrogate for Krypton. What happened with Krypton in that he has hurt Krypto. And then, of course, he is the actual for Ruthie by killing her family. So was he a great villain? No, but he wasn't meant to be. It's not a movie about him, really. Yeah, and people are saying, oh, well, if they fleshed him out more, I don't think you need to flesh out the objectively bad guy. And what I mean by that is, of course, they went places with that character that you don't want to flesh out a character like that, because if you flesh out a character like that, it looks like you're sympathizing with a character like that. I'm not saying that you can't put stuff like that to screen. You know, very good versions of those types of things have been put to screen. Not so much, how do I put it? Kilgrave, for example, in Jessica Jones, obviously very much a bad person and explored, but always reminded as you go through that he is a bad guy. Now, could they have done that? Yes, of course they could have. Another example, Joe Goldberg, obviously very bad guy, but you're in his psyche. You're trying to understand him, but you are reminded along the way that he is not a good person. I think with this one, though, him not being explored is better because it feels almost like the story is about, in my mind, this is going to sound maybe a bit deep and maybe a bit too crit theory, but the loss of, specifically in this instance, this is going to sound like I'm not. It's not trying to make it weird. A girl's childhood, and what I mean by that is there's obviously this discussion that women are made to grow up faster, right? This idea that they must take on certain roles, and that men are sort of suggested to be less responsible than women, and there's even a kind of conversation that is not intended in that way, but within the movie they're talking about Clark being young and Kara not being, and that Ruthie isn't as well. And obviously, there's talked about other people as well. There is a guy who's obviously dealing with the loss of his daughter that is mentioned in that. And so I'm not saying it's objectively about women. And I'm not trying to make like a feminist specific point, but I think there is a point there that there's a little bit of within the story. Obviously, the brides, the other girls that have been taken, etc., and then Kara, and then Ruthie, is this idea of a lost feminine childhood because they had to grow up, and grow up because there was a responsibility thrust upon them by the parents in a weird roundabout way, because Ruthie still obviously very much feels responsible for her clan. And that's not a bad thing. It's not, again, none of this is bad. It's just a point worth exploring. Whereas Kara obviously feels responsible for Krypton or Argo City. So I think that's an interesting point. I think it's worth raising that this movie is. Do you know what? I know this sounds really weird. When I was sat watching the movie, I felt it was not dissimilar to the Barbie movie, in that the trajectories are opposite. In that Barbie is a superficial character who wants to learn more. I think Kara is a character who has so much depth and is trying to act superficial. So they're opposites. But I think the explored sense of womanhood or girlhood, or however you want to put it, is in that similar moment. And actually, I want to make a very important point on this, actually. So there's a big discussion regarding the last portion of, like, the last fight scene in the movie, and that's regarding the needle drop that's in it. And I forget the song off the top of my head, but a lot of people are saying that needle drop is one of the worst needle drops in like any movie ever. And you know what? I was waiting for it, and I was thinking, oh god, is it going to be like embarrassing or cringe or something? And I actually didn't find that. And I want to pose a reason as to why I liked it. I seem to always have these takes. I feel like every time something comes out that everyone generally hates, I will say some kind of counterpoint. I remember it being with Madam Web, where I said it was so bad it almost became like The Room and came back around to being somewhat good, which I actually have heard a few people sort of say similar in more recent times, which I feel vindicated by. But I think with that piece of music, the lyrics and the pacing of the song are actually not about the fight scene at all. And that's why it's dissonant to the fight scene, because everything is not okay in that moment, but the song is saying it's okay. And the reason it's saying it's okay is because that song is indicating, in my head, the change in Kara. She didn't care at the beginning of the movie, and more so, she couldn't care. Because if she cared, she let in all the stuff that her parents told her about being good, that Clark's trying to tell her about staying somewhere, learning a new people, being in a place, being happy. And in that moment, I think it's that thing of, I don't think the music's about what's happening outside. I think it's actually about what's happening in Kara. And you see earlier in the movie, she's listening to her headset, and you see her kind of laying on the bed saying, how can this be home? And I actually think what could have made the scene work a little bit better is if they pulled that scene out a little bit further in that fight scene, and have the fight scene juxtapose with her on Earth trying to just, like, even if it's just something as simple as walking around and getting to understand Earth to a degree. And obviously at that point in the story, she doesn't, but she hears that song. And you get that, or you make the song earlier in the movie mean something, and then it kind of comes back around. Because I think the issue is not about, I don't think it's about the song or the cover of the song, because I believe it's a cover, or the pace of the song or whatever. It's about the fact that it doesn't have emotional stakes. Whenever you hear a piece of music, it needs to have emotional stakes. And that music just felt, I get what people are saying, not really in line with the other stuff in the movie. Now, at the same time, going back to the Barbie analogy, or comparison, should I say, I don't think it's a dissimilar song to What Was I Made For that movie, in that it is dealing with these characters coming to their kind of their eureka moment, their defining moment, their changing moment. straight after this fight, we see Kara and Ruthie have the discussion about Krem, and Kara comes to peace with herself so she can do what she needs to do. Now, again, I know that that's different in the comics. I have heard that already. But she does what she needs to do, and she takes the brunt on for Ruthie because she has seen this stolen womanhood, this stolen childhood from both Ruthie and the girl who was killed by Krem on the planet prior to the final. And so I think, how do I put this? I'm talking about this movie a lot. I'm finding, and the reason I'm finding it is because I kind of want to protect this movie. I think, not protect it in like a weird way, but I think this movie has a lot more depth than it's being given on first pass. I think if you watch it one or two more times, there's actually some gold there. Now, what I will say is I think the plot generally, I think that whole segment with the sorry, I'm just like all those like very high points I've just come to. The plot generally, I think was you're sat there kind of thinking, oh well, this is kind of like Guardians 3 with Rocket, and then you're sat thinking, okay, it's the typical superhero journey. Go to 3 different planets, you do 3 different things. There's some other bad guy in the middle with these space raiders. There's the funny fight scene. There's the kind of more brutal fight scene. Like it was so typical regards the actual plot, but I think the characters were different. I think the characters were very interesting, and it was nice seeing these small moments with Clark. I actually almost wish there was 1 or 2 more of those regards him and her. I kind of want to see her first small forays into the kind of like crime fighting side a little bit. And I'm hoping we get a little bit of that at some point, because I feel like we've seen her origin story. And I will say, by the way, that the fact that they tied the origin story into the movie rather than slowing it down and having that at the beginning was quite good. But I still want that gap bridged of like, how did she adapt? How was that first, like, how, and why didn't she adapt, so to speak? I don't think we're going to kind of get that, but I think that's an interesting thing to discuss and think about, and hopefully we get some kind of resolution as to how she tried to assimilate and then didn't. It's hard now because she kind of has decided to assimilate in a way, but maybe we'll have something where Lex Luthor in the next Superman movie kind of has a kind of Supergirl's in it, and there's kind of a use of her and her not fitting in exactly opposite to Clark's speech at the end of the first Superman film. That would be kind of cool as like a way to kind of dichotomize the two in terms of having a Supergirl speech in that movie or Supergirl moment in that movie that kind of makes her feel less than, so we can explore that moment of her past, and then she can kind of do the opposite. She can do the opposite of what Clark says. She can say, I am of Krypton, but I choose Earth, type thing. The opposite of the Clark speech. I think I could say a lot more about this movie, to be honest, but what I want to leave it with is, and I also want to say, I think this is not a movie that is going to, I think the general audience might enjoy this movie, because I was quite surprised. I actually took, so how do I put this? Basically, the cinema I was going to, I thought there was only a few seats left, and one of the ones that was is like a double seat, like a sofa seat. And so I bought one of those, and I had the ticket. And I was like, I don't know who to go with. And obviously, my parents were busy this weekend with the move and everything. And so I was like, okay, what about if I ask my gran to go with me? And my gran thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Said it was really good, really enjoyed it. So I think people always need to always forget. I think this is the thing. Word of mouth is a struggle these days. But I think also because there's so many movies coming out and there's so many different things to watch and money's tight and stuff like that, movies struggle a lot more. But if you sit people down and watch a movie, half the time people will come out and say it's good. Because I've had it before with my mum or my dad or whoever I've been with these movies. Because I like to try and take different people, because I kind of like having someone else's opinion that isn't a nerd person to kind of get the general sense of what it's like for them. And my gran said she loved it. She really enjoyed it. She thought it was quite funny. I think she loved Crypto, to be honest. Laughing a lot whenever Crypto came on scene. But yeah, so that's something to say. And also, another point, and I think this is quite important. there's a lot of young boys going to watch this film. And I always feel weird when I say that phrase, which is so weird because it feels like you can't say things like that without sounding like a weirdo, which is not the intent of that, by the way. What I'm trying to say is it was so healthy and so positive to see a lot of young male kids, guys, children, going and watching a movie that's about empowering female characters. We talk about girls getting to see strong girls on screen. I think it's also important for boys to see strong women on screen. So it's a really good movie for that too. I saw a lot of kids in my screening who fit into that category. I was really happy about that, to be honest. And again, sorry that it sounds weird. And I'm going to say it. I think people have made words so polarizing in the recent market. You say something like that, and you think, oh, are people going to say something weird regards that? And I think this is the world we live in now, and it's so frustrating. You can't even say two words together without it sounding like you're being weird. So there's that statement out there as well, I guess. But what I was trying to get at, without kind of taking away from the actual point, is that a really good role model for young kids in general, but really nice to see that there was some boys going and watching that movie who you might think, oh, they're not going to watch Supergirl, but they did. They were going. And I think that's very important. So that's also worth mentioning. So with that, let's wrap up there, because I've taken a lot longer than I usually do on these things. And yeah, some people are saying 7 out of 10. I think probably more 8 out of 10 for me. I'll change that. 8 out of 10 character-wise, and there were some really good moments. 5 out of 10 for the actual plot. Does that make sense? Characters were great, plot wasn't. It's like Ewan McGregor. I always use that one. It's like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. Love his character, but the movies obviously sit a little bit lower. It's like that. So, right. With all of that said, guys, thank you very much for watching and listening as always. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.